Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom and Curran's Patriots Talk podcast alongside my guy, Phil Perry. We have an emergency pod because the Patriots have announced all their coordinators. We already knew that Jeremy Springer was going to do special teams. DeMarcus Covington is going to be the defensive coordinator. But the big surprise is Alex Van Pelt, out of nowhere, is going to take over as the Patriots offensive coordinator. Now, before we bring Phil in, let's give a little bio. Alex Van Pelt is 53 years old. Former Pitt quarterback. I remember him playing there. And then he was with the Bills for a long time as a backup quarterback. He had interviews with the Raiders and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers prior to coming in to see the Patriots. The Patriots basically had him in for an in-person interview, didn't let him leave. Maybe that's because of the other opportunities that were out there. But Phil, a dozen offensive coordinator candidates came through here. You and I discussed many times that Nick Caley was a candidate, a finalist, a favorite to have the job. I expressed on our last pod just my concern about rookies all over the place. Well, in Alex Van Pelt, the Patriots do not have a rookie. They have a 53-year-old guy who's been the coordinator for the Cleveland Browns for the last 3 years, 2020, 2021, in through 2023 when the Browns go to the playoffs. And they use a whole fleet of different quarterbacks, Joe Flacco included. So you go from Deshaun Watson to him being in and out of the lineup to Joe Flacco. And yeah, you're a defensive-oriented team, but you don't have Nick Chubb and you still get to the playoffs. So enough out of me. I'm going to give you the ball once I just say that, to me, this is a BCS situation, best case scenario, because you needed somebody with some experience who's not going to be an interloper. Phil, take the ball. I know that you have plenty of Alex Van Pelt intel to share. What do you like about this move? And what is there to not like?
Yeah, well, I think, the first couple things that really stand out is he has a ton of experience, not only just being in the league since the mid-90s as a player, but as a quarterbacks coach, specifically, Tom, over a decade coaching NFL quarterbacks in some really well-respected systems. A lot of time with Mike McCarthy in Green Bay. Okay. We know he spent time in Buffalo, but he also has this West Coasty background that we've been talking a lot about because all of these other Patriots potential offensive coordinators had similar backgrounds. He didn't work under Sean McVay, but he worked under Sean McVay's close assistant, Zach Taylor, in Cincinnati. In 2019, coached Joe Burrow. He worked under Kevin Stefanski most recently. Stefanski is a disciple of Gary Kubiak's, who's a longtime assistant of Mike Shanahan's. He's one of the godfathers of the quote-unquote Shanahan offense as we know it. Kubiak ran it all over the league in different locales where he was offensive coordinator or head coach. So that's Stefanski's system. It's an offshoot of the Shanahan system is the Zach Taylor system. So I think that's what you can expect in terms of the style of offense. Now there's real differences between what they're doing in Cincinnati and what they're doing in Cleveland. But that's the foundation of where I think he will be pulling for the Patriots offense moving forward.
So if we were to look at the Cleveland Brown offense over the last 4 years and say probably something similar to that, that would be the fair way to do it. Now, as we have pointed out many times here, the Patriots are a blank slate on offense. They don't have to worry about the Earhart-Perkins offense or what Josh did or what Tom Brady had, or they don't have to worry about trying to instill a wide zone type of offense as they were trying to do at the beginning of 2022 with Matt Patricia in charge. What style of offense is this? Because they had some rototillin running backs there, and they had an outstanding running game with the Cleveland Browns at times.
Well, and so this is what makes trying to pigeonhole these systems and into certain categories, I think, a little bit of a fool's errand, because even though McVay and Shanahan are coming from the same place, and you could mention Zach Taylor, you can mention Matt LaFleur, they all have their differences. They all have their own spin-offs, their own quirks. The languages might be relatively similar, but they are different. And so, Stefanski does do, and has done, did with Kirk Cousins, for instance, a lot of the wide zone and the play action boot. Boot left, boot right. It's one of the reasons why Cousins is such a good fit, is my understanding, is that he boots both ways and throws
double booter
really well.
And that's what Jake Plummer did. Just to roll it back, folks, for people who've been watching and don't recall the Shanahan offense, i.e. the way that Mike Shanahan ran it with Denver, it was, for instance, Jake Plummer. I don't know why I circle on that, but Jake Plummer was running that offense in 2005 when the Patriots played them in the playoffs. And it's basically, you're going to have stretch run, then you're going to fake the stretch run, you're going to boot, and you're going to have guys running at different levels, first level, second level, third level. They're going to be running basically drag routes across the defense. And you're stressing the defense laterally by getting them moving one way. And then you run these drags at different levels. That's why Rod Smith and Ed McCaffrey were absolute friggin' beasts in that offense. Patriots don't have a Rod Smith or an Ed McCaffrey right now. Be that as it may.
Be that as it may, I wouldn't assume that that's what he's going to do, because I've spoken to people
it's a
close.
Basic portion of it. Sorry.
I've spoken to people close to him, and he has such a varied offensive background that he has so much experience that he should be able to look at whatever it is they end up with personnel wise. We know they're a blank slate there right now, Tom, but whatever he ends up with there personnel wise, he'll be able to, in some regards, tweak whatever it is he likes most to whatever it is these players do. Oh, hey, we did this with Aaron Rodgers when I was there with Mike McCarthy back in the day. Oh, we did this with Burrow as a rookie. And so maybe if it's a rookie quarterback that we have who likes to work out of the shotgun, maybe that's something that we'll be able to pull from there. And Jacoby Brissett really loved to do this back in 2022. And this guy's skill set's a little bit similar. So, or maybe they have Jacoby Brissett, Tom, as a free agent.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask my next question. Let's get into some direct questions to make it easy for folks to try and figure out what's some cliff notes on this guy are. Okay. What would you expect a kind of quarterback? How does the addition of Alex Van Pelt perhaps give us more clarity on what they could do at quarterback? To me, and I've been a proponent of thinking about trading down from 3, because you don't want to have a first-year coordinator with a leaky line. He is kind of a quarterback whisperer, or at least he has that volume of experience where I'd feel more comfortable with him working with Drake May or Jaden Daniels. And I'd say, okay, then go ahead and take that quarterback at 3 if he's sitting there, and they can figure out the offensive line as it goes. Because I have been a proponent of, don't waste a year of a rookie quarterback in his contract, because he's either going to be cannon fodder or you're not going to put him out there because you don't want to retard his progress. Now I think I look at it and say, this guy should be able to understand how to protect a rookie quarterback and the care and feeding of a rookie quarterback. The Patriots failed to do with Mac Jones.
I think they can feel good about getting a young quarterback and feeling as though they have a very highly respected quarterbacks coach to hand that young player to. Now, based on his history, and if you're asking me who fits his scheme best, he's not going to look at it that way. He'll have preferences after studying these guys and meeting with them and getting to know how they think. But he's going to want the best player, and he has enough experience, and there's enough breadth to what he can incorporate into a scheme to make it work for that guy.
Especially if they're good. And those two guys are good.
Well, so you know what I'm saying? It doesn't really matter. The scheme part of it, this person told me he'll figure it out. He's going to look at the player first and the tools the player has, how well the player works, how well he studies, how well he absorbs information, what he has on tape, and he'll work something to that player, which I think, Tom, is the way to go.
Yeah, find the best player.
If you come in with a scheme and you say, well, my scheme really doesn't fit with Jaden Daniels, so we got to take Drake May. Well,
right.
What kind of position are you in then when you don't have the opportunity to take Drake May? Player.
Yeah, if you're like, well, he's got a stronger arm, but I don't know if he's going to be able to do these things that I know he can do. What attributes, aside from the X's and O's, do you think make Van Pelt attractive to the Patriots culture?
Well, I think in terms of the culture, he's going to be what Gerard Mayo is looking for. And I'll just pull up some of the quotes from the person that I spoke to today. Phenomenal culture guy. I told him that this person, that there had been some instances of infighting and sniping at coaches and the media and scuffles behind the scenes that we've heard about over the course of the last couple of years, Tom. And this person who knows Van Pelt well said he is the opposite of that. He is as loyal and as team-oriented and as easy to get along with as anyone in the NFL. And he has a great presence too. So he's not just this jolly quarterbacks coach whisperer type of guy who's just happy-go-lucky all the time. He has real presence. He has real authority, great in front of the room. So I think, Tom, for a young head coach, the reason why this is a good hire for Gerard Mayo is, number one, he has all the experience he has, so he can help him in that regard in terms of helping him understand that which he has never come across in this position that he's about to undertake. But number two, even though they don't have a shared background, he sounds like the kind of guy that you'd be able to trust based on his history. And I think that is massive based on especially the recent history here in New England. I know you've talked about it ad nauseum, the Machiavellian nature of the Patriots coaching staff in recent years. Van Pelt, and I don't know him, but people who do say he's the opposite of that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he's on the make for one of those golden tickets that makes you a head coach. I mean, I suppose if you walk into that, and I don't know if he's had a head coaching interview in the past either, but you don't turn down $50 million if that comes to pass. But I think the Patriots, certainly because of over the years, the number of guys they've sent on to head coaching jobs, there's been an expectation that, hey, I might get that. And a hope as you come back here and rehab your image, if you're Matt Patricia or Joe Judge or anybody down the line, or Josh McDaniels as he did, I'm going to get one of those golden tickets. And you really want to do that. I don't know if you haven't spoken a word to the guy. Maybe AVP. I like to call him AVP. Maybe AVP. I'm kidding. Would want to do that, but still, the point remains that he doesn't seem like he's rising star on the make. Has to have it.
Well, and Tom,
but he was sought after. That is one important thing, because Felger was nobody wants Nick Caley, which isn't a bad point. Patriots are the only team talking to Nick Caley, and does that give you pause? But Van Pelt had other options in terms of the Raiders and Bucks. Phil, sorry.
Yeah, and I don't know if he was offered by those places, but those were indications that I got too, is that he did have other opportunities. And honestly, Tom, that surprised me, because I figured if there was anybody out there who had multiple opportunities, the Patriots in their situation might be at the bottom of the list. We've talked about it here. We talked about it earlier today. We did a podcast this morning before my haircut. You haven't said anything about my haircut, by the way.
So it's breaking news out here.
Thank you.
It looks great.
Thank you. Between the roster, the unknown in the head coach, the unknown in the front office, you don't even know who's picking the players, the expectations of working in a region that is accustomed to seeing good football for 20 plus years. This was not a highly sought after job for a number of different people in certain situations. Now, Felger, Maz, anybody else that says, well, nobody else wanted Nick Caley, why should the Patriots want him? That might be fair. I also wouldn't be stunned, and I don't know this, I wouldn't be stunned if he was hesitant, Tom, to take this job. As a younger guy,
sure,
first chance at being an offensive coordinator, you come here, and what are the odds of you finding success in year one?
Oh,
thank good.
It's so much a better fit, because it could destroy Nick.
Exactly. Well, and that's why I think I don't know if he was offered, but he might have had some hesitations about coming here as opposed to staying in LA, working for Sean McVay, maybe getting a better role, pass game coordinator next year in LA, and then you're the belle of the ball maybe in 2025.
Yeah.
That to me could be a very logical explanation as to
certainly
why he's not here right now.
And it might work on both sides. I've talked about it in the podcast this morning. Wrong place, wrong time. For Caleb Williams, for instance, I said, because I just don't think that the cut of his jib is going to mesh here with this organization as it tries to impart a culture of selflessness. You got something? I can always tell when you're about to say something or just learn something. What's up with the eyes? You got something there?
Just a couple other little nuggets that I'm going through. I would expect that he would hire a quarterbacks coach, even though he's been a quarterbacks coach himself. Now, maybe the Patriots, I don't know, is that an ownership call? No, hey, we've had a quarterbacks coach / offensive coordinator here for a long time. Josh McDaniels obviously did that forever here. Would they ask Van Pelt to do the same thing? Or would he want to hire somebody who's sort of his number two?
Well, they have old Evan Rothstein scuttling around there too, still.
They do. And would he want to work with him? I don't know. I don't know how that would work. But one other thing I just would say about his getting fired from Cleveland, because I've already seen it now in my Twitter mentions a bunch. Well, why did the Browns fire him if he's any good, if he's worth his salt? What's he doing not in Cleveland anymore? And again, I think it's a fair question. But I heard Albert Breer talk about it tonight on Early Edition, and I've heard similar things. I don't believe this was a coaching staff decision. I think the coaching staff in Cleveland really liked Van Pelt. And I think this was a little bit higher up the chain in Cleveland. And the way one person put it to me was, quote, Cleveland gonna Cleveland. Close quote. Because they don't understand, Tom, that it's a little bit like a locker room, the coaching staff. It can be. Athletic ability is one thing, and that can help you win games. But especially on a coaching staff, more so than on a football team, how you work with one another, how you interact, how you exchange ideas, how you keep the mood light at times can be really important to the overall function of the thing.
Yeah, because the players watch. Players watch. This coach doesn't respect that coach. Why am I supposed to listen to him when I have the offensive coordinator rolling his eyes or saying the wide receivers aren't ready to go or whatever? It fritters away at the authority of each other. It is important. You're exactly right. Hey, Phil, here's that cut from Albert from Early Edition discussing the firing of Alex Van Pelt by the Browns and why that might have happened.
When you talk to people in Cleveland, they feel like Kevin Stefanski wasn't the one who fired Alex Van Pelt. They feel like the Haslams and Paul DePodesta were the ones that did it because they didn't feel like they were getting enough out of Deshaun Watson. And I know the reaction on that Brown staff. They were shocked, and they're a little worried right now. And the reason why is because Kevin, if you've been around him, is a little bit more of a flatline personality. Alex Van Pelt was the glue guy on that staff, the guy who was outgoing, the guy who brought people together, the guy who was kind of the veteran sage, like the person who unified everybody.
There's one other Cleveland tie I want to bring to light here, Phil, as we look at, hey, who's the GM? Who's in charge down there? Who's making the calls on things? Eliot Wolf was a Cleveland executive for a period of time. He would have been there at the same time as the new guy whose name just escaped me. It's back. Alex Van Pelt, AVP. So he was there at the same time as AVP. Does this shed any light on the role that Eliot Wolf right now has with the Patriots organization? Or do you think it's just happenstance?
No, I think it could. I think it could be indicative of the fact that, and we know this, right, to a degree, that he has a real say. He's been involved in helping with the coordinator searches. Matt Groh has been involved as well, although Matt Groh is now at the Senior Bowl and Eliot Wolf is not. And so, Tom, maybe that's a sign of something. You're pointing at me as you chug some water.
Yeah, that feels like a Elliot's. You're going to do some of the college scouting and the personnel and the draft stuff, Matt. Gerard and I will do kind of the staff stuff, for lack of a better. I mean, maybe they're calling Groh and saying, he was really good. What do you think? And Groh's giving the thumbs up and thumbs down. We don't know that. I doubt that's the case, but just on the surface, it looks like that could be. Put Matt in a data collection capacity where he excels. I don't know.
No, that could be exactly what they're doing. And so, I like the fact that if there's a relationship there already between Wolf and Van Pelt, then that's great. And if that gave them any insight into making this hire, if it's so much about, and we talked about this a little bit when it came to the Jeremy Springer hire last night on Early Edition, and boy, this guy just seems like he's got a ton of energy, and maybe he can pull some of that Sean McVay and that good juju out there in LA into New England. If that's what they're focused on, if they really want to change the feel of the staff and how coaches interact with players, how coaches interact with each other here in New England, maybe Eliot Wolf said, hey, this guy's a tremendous quarterbacks coach. He hasn't had a ton of experience calling plays. Tom, we haven't even talked about that here yet tonight. Mm-hmm. But even though he was OC, Kevin Stefanski was the play caller in Cleveland. Stefanski missed 2 games in the last few years where he had COVID. Van Pelt stepped in, called those games. One was a win over the Steelers in the playoffs. They scored 48 points, I think, in that game, so went pretty well. The other was a loss to the Raiders where they scored in the teens. It's my understanding he also called some plays in preseason, but it hasn't been real extensive in terms of the play calling. Wolf might know that and say, but Gerard, he's your kind of guy. He's the kind of person that we're really looking to populate our staff with right now. And so if he gave that sort of insight for this and it ends up working out, then he should get a lot of credit.
I've been around here long enough to know, and if I said it to my friends, we were sitting around the bar, they'd say, oh, great, so it's going to be fun? Or they're going into for the fun stuff? And I would say to them, do you understand they just went 4-13? 4-13 with a miserable atmosphere is a hell of a lot worse than 4-13 with the arrow pointing up and a rebuild going on and people being optimistic. Don't ever forget they went 4-13. Phil, I'm going to give you the ball for your final takeaway once you get your lips all set.
Man, I don't know about anybody else, but my
margarita lips?
Margarita lips to the nth degree these days. It's just so dry. Unbelievable.
Sorry,
so hopefully Van Pelt still has a lot of that stuff left over from his time in, Cleveland, Green Bay. Man, this guy knows how to coach in the elements too, Tom. Cleveland, Cincinnati, Green Bay, Buffalo. Plus, he's going to be a great interview for us, Tom, former radio show host. He did
slants.
He did 2 years of radio after his days as a player up in Buffalo.
Oh, so they have so much media experience on that coaching staff. Mayo, slants, Van Pelt radio.
Is this a play just to develop more original content for Patriots.com?
Right, you never know. All right, so I'm going to give you my 30-second synopsis. I feel way better about the direction of the Patriots offense tonight than I did this morning. I was very much concerned about rookie coordinators everywhere and a collaboration in which there was no experienced individual to bounce things off of. This is a 53-year-old guy who's been around the league since before Gerard was born. Not that long. But you have an opportunity with him to say, Alex, you got the offense, all of the offense today. I'm going to spend my time over here on the defense. And he doesn't have to worry about teaching Alex Van Pelt. If Gerard decided to start sitting in on offensive meetings, in a way he probably hasn't done in the past. I don't know that specifically. But if he wants to sit in on an offensive meeting and he sees Nick Caley not doing a bang-up job, or he doesn't like to cut a Nick's jib because he's learning on the job too, he might feel as if he wants to say something. At least with Alex, he stood at the front of meetings for 4 years and coordinated an offense and hired and overseen assistant coaches. So I feel way better now about the experience there. Nick might go on to be the next McVay. But for the Patriots right now, they needed AVP. You know what, AVP?
Here's what I would just say, my quick 30-second synopsis.
Sorry.
Even shorter than that, hopefully.
Yeah,
good hire in that you're probably going to have a young quarterback in here, and you have somebody who's coached a lot of good quarterbacks in his time in the NFL. Good hire in that he comes from a variety of different systems, and he should be able to mold whatever his scheme becomes to the players that eventually make up the Patriots offensive huddle. We know they have a lot of work to do in that regard. My one major concern would be on game day. He does not have a vast amount of experience when it comes to calling plays. And that can be an art. And listen, we've talked about it plenty of times, you and I. Bobby Slowick never called plays before he started calling plays this year. Ben Johnson never called a play before he started calling plays in Detroit. It's gone okay for those guys. Mike McDaniel's another one. Before he became a head coach, he had never called a play. Those guys, it turns out, are great. The same may be true for Van Pelt, but that's my one big red question mark over his head right now is how does it look on game day when the bullets are live and it's stressful and there's adversity and you have to react in real time and adjust on the fly and build one play on top of another, on top of another, on top of another, and you have to manage your emotions and your adrenaline and all of that. How does it all come together on Sundays? Because he hasn't done a ton of it in his career.
Very nice. Very nice. John, let's put a cork in this one. Skull Crusher. Put a cork in it, baby. Thanks, everybody. I'm glad to have the coordinator situation put to bed. Now we'll see what happens with the assistants. I lied earlier today when I said the next time you'll hear from us, we'll be in Vegas. Now the next time you hear from us, we'll be in Vegas, unless we have to come in and do another. Have a great night.